Alright, hey guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be resurrecting this 2017 MacBook Air. This computer currently does not boot, and it also has a lot of scratches and dings on its chassis. We're going to basically change the chassis out, like the top cover of it, and then also see if we can get this computer usable again by either trying to boot macOS High Sierra on it, which is what it came with, or maybe some type of Linux distribution. I also apologize for not posting the last month and a half. Life has just been a little bit crazy, but hopefully I'll be back to publishing some more content soon. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so now I've actually already went ahead and replaced the top cover, so I'm not going to go through that, but you can really see, like, this was a time period when Apple had a lot better user replaceability on its computers and designs. This entire battery is very easy for the user to replace with just that pull tab right there that needs to be pulled out for the user to get rid of it. You can also get in a new Wi-Fi card if you want to, and also there's user upgradable SSD storage. So in terms of that component right there, especially the SSD, one of the components that could go bad, that's something the user had easy access to replace. The only thing that sucks is that the memory on this computer is soldered on, but apart from that, this is actually pretty serviceable in terms of being able to replace components. Even the fan right here is also pretty easy to access and service if you just lift up this ribbon cable right here and then detach the rubber gasket that holds this entire thing together. But certainly something that's really nice for Apple to have at the time in terms of having the user be able to replace their own components. Let's also go ahead and take a look at the I/O and look at the case that was replaced. Alright, so before I talk about the I/O, I just want to show the old top case that was actually replaced for this computer. So this had a pretty nasty dent right here on the main chassis, and it also made it a little hard for this computer to get charged correctly as well. Not to mention, the keyboard had one key that was basically being taped together to stay on there, and then this key, as well as the key up here, also did not work. So you can buy a new one of these cases, and they'll actually come with daughter boards for the ports on each side off of eBay for about like 30 bucks, and honestly it was a pretty easy to replace component after you just watch like a couple YouTube videos online. But yeah, let's get into the I/O of the computer now. So for 2017, which was I think the last year that this computer was still available to buy from Apple, you had still pretty good I/O for the time, I would say. You have a USB port as well as your 3.5mm headphone jack, as well as MagSafe, which was something MacBook Pros didn't have for a little while until recently. And then on the other side, you have Thunderbolt 2, which kind of sucks because now you need to have a dongle to be able to use this. So I guess in 2023, Thunderbolt 2 is definitely going to be a step backward if you end up buying one of these. And then again, another USB slot, and then the full-size SD card slot as well. So again, something that most computers now don't have either. But yeah, now let's just get into the general usability of this computer. In terms of actually restoring this computer, I actually wanted to go ahead and put macOS High Sierra back on it, which was the version of macOS that this computer was natively installed with. I wasn't able to do that, and I guess I'll get into a little bit of reasons why. When I went into the recovery drive that Apple has for the computer by default, when I went to actually do a clean install of macOS High Sierra, I got to an error message at the very end that basically said that the operation failed, and it suggested me to retry it, which I actually did quite a few times, and each time it failed. So from there, I decided to see if I could create a bootable USB. Now, unfortunately, I have an Apple Silicon Mac, and all my friends have Apple Silicon Macs as well, so I wasn't able to create a bootable USB on an Apple Silicon Mac for an Intel-based computer. So in terms of having backwards compatibility, I couldn't find a way that was directly supported. So I guess that kind of sucks from Apple's perspective. Like, that's really something they should support. I did also then try to see if I could just find ISOs for macOS High Sierra as well, and that also did not yield any good results. I did find a few options for people who are trying to create virtual machines on VMware or VirtualBox, but any ISO that I found online that I actually ended up creating a bootable USB for, once I put it into this computer and went into the recovery drive, it basically said that this version of macOS was corrupted or could not be installed. From there, I was like, well, I mean, if I can't install macOS on this, why not just install another Linux distribution? So what's running on this computer right now is actually Ubuntu 22.0 LTS. So it's going to have a good amount of software support and security updates, at least for a really long time. And another good thing about Linux is that it's also very bare bones and stock. This computer will have absolutely no issues running it because it still has a pretty decent processor, and it has an SSD, which makes day-to-day operations really fast. Not to mention, it also doesn't have to run all the stuff that's loaded into macOS, like things that integrate into Apple's ecosystem. So I guess that's both a pro and a con at the same time. Pro because there's a lot less stuff that this computer has to run in the background, and con because you don't get to integrate this computer with the Apple ecosystem, which is something that most people who are using an Apple computer will probably expect. But I guess one thing I really still do love about computers from this time era, when in Apple's timeline, was having like the light up logo at the back. I really wish they would bring this back in current Macs, because that'd be really cool. It's also just like a kind of signature trait for Apple products at the time. But apart from that, this computer runs Ubuntu 22.0 pretty well, honestly. The only thing that sucks about using this computer in 2023 is the screen. The screen is absolutely terrible. It gets bright enough. It's definitely not the brightest thing in the world, but the main gripe I have with it is the resolution. It is notoriously bad, even for 2017 standards. I think this was probably a computer at the time Apple was charging $1,000 for, maybe even more. So for me to actually be able to see the pixels, individual pixels with my eyes, even for 2017 standards, that's a little unacceptable. But apart from that, it still has a really good trackpad, and the gestures on Ubuntu honestly work just as well. So if you want to use this computer in 2023, you absolutely still can. And it also has a really good keyboard. It's basically uses the same mechanism most of the new Macs have, not like the terrible keys that were introduced in the MacBook Pros in around like 2017 to 2019 timeframe. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I've also themed this computer to look exactly like a Mac, because the family member I'm going to be giving this to is going to be expecting to use it just like the way they used the computer before on macOS. So it's definitely going to be a little bit of a shock when they realize, uh-oh, this computer doesn't actually have macOS on it. But when it was given, it was basically going to be thrown away in the trash anyway. So this computer has still been saved from then. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. So comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.